Leave her, you unclean spirit. I condemn you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Leave and go back to hell. I was standing in horror as I watched Father Gabriel perform an exorcism on my wife, Emily. She was screaming and laughing and behaving like a creature from another world. A world where humans don't tread. Her body moved and bent in a horrifying way, and there was nothing I could do to make it all right. She jumped on the bed, sitting like a frog, and said in a demonic voice, "You really love her, don't you, David? But does she love you? I don't think so. Because she did enjoy sleeping with your brother when you were out of town." Shut up! You're lying! You're not my Emily. Leave her body, vermin! Whatever was inside my wife made her look horrifying. Her pupils were small like black dots surfing in a pool of blood. There were deep scratches all over her pretty face. A foul smell came from her bony body that hadn't eaten for at least a week. No doubt, it is the evil that is keeping her alive. She smiled, with her filthy teeth staring at me, and said, "There's nothing you can do to save her now." Father Gabriel sprinkled holy water on her while screaming his prayer once again, and Emily lashed out, making another demonic scream. Every inch of her skin that came in contact with the holy water started to burn to release smoke. She screamed, and I prayed to God to make this over. I blame myself for what is happening to my dear wife. If not, I bought her that evil Dybbuk box from the garage sale. Everything would have been normal in our life. I couldn't help but get lost in thoughts of those cheerful memories. Even a month back, we were living the life of our dreams until fate changed it all to a nightmare. Emily and I came to this small town hoping for a fresh start. We bought a small house, and honestly, to cut the costs, we bought secondhand furniture to decorate the house. In a small town like this, it wasn't hard to find reusable stuff. One day, we were coming home after buying a beautiful set of wine glasses at a very low price when we saw a garage sale going on in our house next door. We hadn't met our neighbors yet, so we thought it would be a better idea to check out the sale and also socialize a bit. A few people were gathering around the front yard of the house. An old man was sitting on a chair and selling various items. We walked close to him, and he looked at us with scanning eyes. Everyone else was also staring at us, and I whispered to Emily, "Welcome to the neighborhood." She laughed at my joke and started to go through the stuff that was on sale. Wooden chairs, coffee tables, kitchen utensils, dinner sets, mirrors, even dressers were in that collection. It felt like someone decided to get rid of all the things they had and run away. Some of the things seemed strikingly new. Emily bought a bunch of clothes and got busy on her shopping spree. I couldn't hold back my curiosity and asked the man, "This is a lot of stuff. So you all are shifting elsewhere, it seems?" The old man gave me a blank stare and said, "I am just the caretaker of this house. The family who lived here faced a tragic incident. The wife committed suicide after a long-term illness, and the husband left the next day, leaving all this stuff. Before the new tenants come, I have to get rid of these." He spoke in an annoyed tone, like he really wants to get done with these leftovers. I had no idea our neighbor next door went through such a traumatic phase. I was going to ask the man what exactly happened to that wife when I heard Emily's voice. "Wow, this is such a pretty jewelry box." I turned towards her and saw she was holding a small wooden box with an intricate design on its lid. It seemed quite expensive to me because I have seen boxes like this in many antique shops that were worth a lot of money. I looked at the old man and said, "How much is it?" He said in a hesitant voice, You really want that?" Emily nodded her head yes. He looked at the box and said, "Pay whatever you want." I got a bit suspicious because I expected him to ask a fixed rate for such a crafted piece. Emily said, "We will give you $10. And surprising me, the man accepted the deal right away. Emily bought some clothes and jewelry too. We came home and I couldn't shake off the feeling why that man gave us this antique box at such a low cost. Emily rushed to the bedroom and sat down in front of the mirror. I know now she will put all her jewelry inside that box and pretend like she is a royal queen. I liked this little joy of her in every little thing. But as she tried to open the box, we found the real catch. No matter how hard we tried or how much strength we put in, we couldn't open it. What an idiot I am. I should have checked it before buying. Now I understand why the old man agreed to sell it at $10. Damn it. We can use a knife to try to pry it. No, that'll ruin the craftsmanship. Let it be. I will think of some other ways to open it. Saying this, Emily kept the box on her dressing table and we got busy with our chores. Time went by and I started noticing changes in Emily's behavior. She used to wake up in the middle of the night and sit in front of the mirror staring at the box. It was like she went into a trance. It got me worried because she stopped talking much. Her entire attention revolved around that box. One afternoon, I came home from work to pick up an important file. I walked straight into the bedroom in a hurry, and I saw Emily sitting on the bed and eating something from the box. The lid was surprisingly open. Oh, so you finally opened the box. Saying this, I was about to step close to her when she turned back. I could see her mouth smeared in blood and her eyes were all white. She giggled and fainted on the floor. The box fell on the floor from her hand, and I found some pretty bizarre stuff inside. There were dried fingernails, blood-filled leeches, strands of dirty hair, and a creepy doll, more like a human figurine made with tattered clothes. There were pins sticking in it. It made me vomit, realizing my wife was eating those leeches, God knows, filled with whose blood. And that was the beginning of this nightmare. When the doctors couldn't help us anymore, I turned towards God. The priest of the local church, Father Gabriel, came to my house and told me that a demonic spirit had latched itself onto my wife. The box wasn't just some pretty jewelry box. In fact, it was a Dybbuk box, used in some ritualistic sacrifice. Whatever was inside that box, my wife set it free, and now it wants her soul. Father Gabriel suggested the only way out of this was the exorcism, and that's why we are giving one last try. I don't want to end up like our next-door neighbor. Now I know the kind wife must have faced the same fate towards which Emily is going. Emily screamed as Father Gabriel went on with his chanting. Our entire house started to shake, but the exorcism can't be stopped. Emily started biting herself vigorously. It was horrifying to watch my jolly, sweet wife tearing off her own flesh like a hungry wolf. I couldn't stand the sight anymore. I screamed, "Whoever you are, just leave my wife alone! Leave her for God's sake!" You do love her, right? You have watched her smile. Now, you'll watch her die. I will eat her heart. Father Gabriel sprinkled the holy water once again and said, "Give me your name." "No, I won't." "Give me your name, evil." The more Father Gabriel asked the spirit to give its identity, the more it hurt Emily. "Please, Father, it'll kill her. Please, do something." I cried with my last hope. What Father Gabriel did next shocked the hell out of me. He jumped on the bed, grabbed Emily by her shoulder, and screamed, "You need one soul, evil. You take mine. Let this poor child go. You let her go." Just then, Emily's mouth opened wide, and she vomited black smug into Father Gabriel's face. After releasing it all, Emily's unconscious body fell on the bed, and I saw Father Gabriel's eyes turning around, revealing the white part, just like it happened to Emily. But he didn't stop there. He ran to the kitchen and picked up our kitchen knife, yelling, "In the name of Christ, I condemn you back to hell!" and stabbed himself in the stomach again and again until his lifeless body fell on the floor. The fact that Father Gabriel sacrificed his own life to save my wife will always be a painful fact to me. Now we have no other choice than to run away before anyone else finds Father Gabriel dead in our house. I know the cops will never believe us. I can't risk our life once again, as it will be a complete waste of Father Gabriel's huge sacrifice. I burnt the box before leaving the house. Emily is still lying unconscious in the back seat of my car. God knows what's waiting for us now.
Hey guys, I see many of you commenting on my videos that this channel deserves 1 million subscribers. But I also see the percent of people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to the channel. So, if you like the content, want to support my channel, and want to see this channel reach 1 million subscribers, or maybe 500,000 subscribers, then go ahead, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. It's free, and you can always change your mind later.
My best friend in high school was a guy named Gabe. We even went to the same college but separated afterwards. He went on to travel Europe and Asia while I stayed behind to find a steady job. Although we kept in touch for a while, life eventually got in the way. By the time I found a steady job, I'd almost completely forgotten about him. Then one day I saw a post he made on social media saying that he was holding a garage sale at his old house. I didn't even know he'd returned from his travels, so I thought I'd head over to say hi. I got into my car and drove to where I remembered his house was. Gabe was standing around waiting for people to come by, looking more than a little bored. I parked the car in front of his house and got out to greet him. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up with recognition, and he speed walked towards me. "James, is that you?" "The one and only." "How have you been, man?" "I've been fantastic. Just got back from Spain a few days ago. Decided that I needed to take a little break from traveling." We spent some time catching up and talking about all the places we'd been to. Gabe had been to so many places and saw so many things that I couldn't help but feel a little jealous. I wished I'd been able to travel to other countries like he did. But I wasn't quite as rich as him and had to settle for just visiting other states instead. Man, I wish I could have gone to all those places too. The other states are cool and all, but I would have loved to see the culture in other countries. You don't have to go to other countries to appreciate their culture. Come, there's something I want to show you. Gabe led me to a large leather travel trunk being sold at the garage sale. It clearly seen better days. The deep brown leather had been worn and scratched in many places, probably due to it being tossed around in so many airports. Gabe flicked open the trunk to reveal its contents. Inside were 6 items I didn't recognize, but assumed they had to be from another country. There was some sort of weird yo-yo looking thing, shaped like an hourglass with 2 sticks. A kite with some distinctively Japanese-looking art on it that I assumed was supposed to be a samurai. A simple toy car entirely made out of wood. A small box of cards with what looked like Italian written on it. One of those Russian matryoshka dolls that opened up into many smaller dolls. And strangest of all, a tiny statue of a man with a white shirt and a red cap taking a shit. I couldn't hold back my laughter when I saw it. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's El Cagane. Doesn't that just literally mean the shitter in Spanish? Yep, I got it from Catalonia, Spain. They're really popular there during Christmas. People use them to decorate nativity scenes. That sounds sacrilegious. It's just a difference in culture. Everything in this trunk are souvenirs I got from different countries. For $20, I'll give you the whole thing. Deal, man. I can't wait to put that shitter in my living room. I forked over $20 to Gabe, and after a bit of chatting, went home with my trunk full of exotic goods. When I got home, I immediately put the shitting doll on my shelf in my living room, thinking that it'd make one hell of a conversation starter alongside the matryoshka doll. I didn't know what to do with the rest of the items just yet, and didn't even know what the heck that yo-yo thing was supposed to be yet, so I just put them in a cabinet in the living room for the time being. That's when things started to get weird. On the first night after buying the trunk, I heard the sound of something like whooshing across the air as I was working on my computer in my room. It was the same kind of shrill sound you'd hear if you swiped a stick through the air really fast. Curious and a little worried, I grabbed the basketball bat in my room and went to the living room to investigate. Standing in the middle of my living room playing the hourglass-shaped yo-yo was a girl no older than 8 with long black hair and a transparent body riddled with a dozen stab wounds. Her eyes were as black as her hair with tears of blood streaming down from them as she balanced the hourglass-shaped yo-yo on the length of string in between 2 sticks. When she noticed that I'd entered the living room, she stopped playing with the toy and started staring through me with her empty eyes. The girl opened her mouth and a river of ghostly blood spewed from her lips like a waterfall.
Trình bang vô.
What?
trình bang vô, trình bang vô.
The ghostly girl kept repeating the phrase over and over again, though I couldn't understand it. Even if I could, I don't think my fear-addled mind would have been able to process it anyways. I dropped my bat and ran back into my bedroom, where I locked the door and quickly went to bed praying that it was all just a hallucination caused by stress from work. The next day I woke up to find the hourglass-shaped yo-yo lying right in front of my bedroom door. I had half the mind to throw it out right then and there, but the rational side of me urged me to keep my cool and just put it back in the cabinet I kept all the other souvenirs in. I was awoken that very same night by the sound of something lightly tapping on my bedroom door. Despite my better judgment, my curiosity got the best of me and I eased open my door. On the other side was another ghostly child, this time a boy, though he had the same black eyes streaming with blood as the girl before him. He held the Japanese kite in his hand, which was somehow floating in the air without wind.
助けてください、助けてください.
I didn't even bother to answer. I closed and locked the door before heading straight back to bed. But the moment I laid on my bed, the boy's kite slid under the gap in my door and started floating in my room. I watched in terror as the kite loomed over me with the angry warrior drawn on it, staring me down as the ghostly boy on the other side repeated the same phrase over and over again.
助けてください、助けてください.
I was petrified for about the first hour. After that, it eventually just started getting annoying. The ghost wasn't really doing anything, and if they were trying to scare me, the girl from the previous night had already taken the surprise factor out of it. Eventually, I just fell asleep to the sound of the boy's voice as the pissed-off-looking samurai watched over me. The next 3 nights was more of the same. First, the wooden toy car rolled into my bedroom, set in motion by a ghostly boy with blonde hair.
Snälla hjälp mig, snälla hjälp mig.
Then I woke up to the sound of the Italian deck of cards being shuffled in the middle of the night by the ghost of a brown-haired boy.
Mi aiuti per favore, mi aiuti per favore.
And after that night, I heard the sound of clicking wood as the wooden Matryoshka doll was being disassembled and reassembled by yet another ghostly girl who gave me yet another message I couldn't understand.
Посхильюїста, помучите мені, посхильюїста, помучите мені.
By that point, I didn't even care anymore. The ghost had gone from being scary to mildly creepy to just being plain annoying. I couldn't even understand what they were trying to tell me. That was until the final night. I was woken up in the middle of the night, again to the sound of something falling to the ground with a loud thud. Using the process of elimination, I could already tell what it was. I trudged into the living room with an annoyed look on my face, and sure enough, the shitting statue had fallen from the shelf next to the ghostly boy. Okay, you're really scratching the bottom of the barrel here. I'm not going to be afraid of a shitting statue. The ghostly boy looked at me and opened his mouth. Just like all the others, blood poured over his lips before he was able to speak. But unlike them, I was actually able to understand him.
Por favor, ayúdame, por favor, ayúdame.
My eyes widened when I realized what he and the other children must have been saying. Like many kids, I was taught Spanish as a second language in school, and I had plenty of practice using it during my travels through the US. Although the boy spoke with a European accent, I was able to understand it all the same. Por favor, ayúdame. Please help me. Have you kids been asking for help all this time? I could also see the relief of the boy's bloodied face when he realized I could understand him. He continued to speak in Spanish, and this time, I clung onto every word. Your friend, bring him to us, please. Before I could ask why, the body vanished right before my eyes, leaving me dumbfounded. I invited Gabe over to my house the next day. He arrived early in the evening, just as the sun was setting. We made a bit of small talk before sitting down in the living room over a cup of coffee. So, what did you want to talk about? It's about those souvenirs I bought from you. What about them? I think they might be haunted. Gabe raised an eyebrow and set down his cup of coffee, though he didn't seem as surprised or concerned about my sanity as I thought he'd be. What makes you think that? Well, I've been seeing things ever since I brought them into my house. What kind of things? Children. The ghost of them anyways. There were 2 girls and 4 boys. They were all speaking different languages too. Was there anything else strange about them? They all had stab wounds on their bodies. I think they might have been... Before I could finish my sentence, I saw Gabe pull a switchblade from his pocket and lunge right towards me. I didn't have time to react or question what he was doing. But seconds before the tip of his blade could skewer me, a playing card flew at his hand at blinding speed and knocked it out of his hand. Gabe stumbled back in pain, cradling his bleeding arm. One by one, the ghostly children I'd seen the previous nights appeared in the living room, each holding the toy I'd seen them playing with. No, I killed you. I killed all of you. How are you? The string of the Japanese boy's kite wrapped around his neck and tightened before he could finish. As his face was turning blue from suffocation, the Italian boy threw 2 more playing cards at his eyes, completely destroying them. Using her yo-yo like a flail, the Chinese girl smashed the hourglass-shaped toy against Gabe's stomach, forcing him back and making him slip on the Swedish boy's toy wooden card. Once he was down on the floor, the Russian girl with a Matryoshka doll and the Spanish boy with his statue brought their stolen souvenirs down on Gabe's head over and over again until his head was a pile of gore on the floor and his body finally went still. Once it was all over, the children turned to look at me, and for the first time since I'd seen them, they smiled. They all said something in their native tongues before disappearing, and although I only understood what the Spanish boy said, I knew the meaning behind their words. Gracias. Thank you. The question, do you believe in ghosts, is often asked to people every single day. I would tell you there's no such thing as ghosts. But after hearing this supernatural experience that happened with my own daughter, you too will realize that the so-called fabled ghosts are as real as you and me. It all started about a year ago when my wife and I went to a next-door garage sale. We loved going to garage sales whenever we could, as we always got a good bargain. That day, we saw a beautiful Almirah cupboard sitting in the middle of the garden. We really wanted it, so we asked where it was from, and the seller of the goods said, "It actually belonged to the family who lived here before, and apparently they left it behind when they moved." I wondered why they would leave such a beautiful piece of furniture, as it looked truly exquisite. My wife and I then asked for the price, and we managed to get it for $600. We decided to keep it in our room as it complemented the rest of the furniture there. For a while, I loved the whole thing. But with time, the love began to turn to fear, as ever since we brought it into our house, numerous strange occurrences began to happen. The first strange occurrence started with my 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, who used to still sleep in the same bed as us. It was 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was woken by the numerous whispering noises. I looked around the room to see my daughter sitting directly in front of the Almirah and speaking to it like it was a person. I heard her say, "Shh, don't talk too loud or you'll wake Daddy and Mommy up." Shocked at the sight of my 6-year-old daughter sitting in the dark and talking to an inanimate object, I said, "Ellie, what are you doing? Come back to bed." I then watched my daughter bid the Almirah goodnight like it was a person before coming back to bed. The next day, I told my wife about what happened, and we decided to ask our daughter what was going on. Our daughter then replied to us, "Don't be silly, Daddy. I wasn't talking to the Almirah. I was talking to my friend Hannah, who lives inside." As my 6-year-old daughter spoke, I realized that she said it with all surety. And it seemed like she wasn't lying about it. As being her father, I knew when she was telling the truth. I then asked her, "And this, your friend Hannah, is she imaginary?" My daughter then laughed and said, "Stop being silly, Daddy. She's real, and I've seen her." Perplexed at the confidence our daughter used to answer the question, my wife and I decided to stop prying, as we both assumed she was just going through the imaginary friend stage, as that was the only explanation to it. But as time passed, we realized that there was much more to it. as the strange Almirah continued to cause weird things to happen, things that we could have never imagined. Throughout the following weeks, the strange night talks continued, as at every night, at exactly 3 a.m. on the dot, my daughter would stand up from the bed and proceed to have full-blown conversations with the Almirah. Night after night, I would hear the numerous conversations as my daughter would say things like, "I can't believe your mommy did that. That's very mean. I know it's hot in there, so you can come out now, even if it's for a little while. One day, I'll come inside to play with you." I knew there was something wrong with this, as it all seemed too strange to be a child's antics. So my wife and I began to investigate into the history of the Almirah. We began to ask around, and at the end of the day, we decided to visit the old man in our neighborhood, Old Man Johnson, as we knew he'd know something about the family who once lived in the house next door, as they were the ones who previously owned the strange Almirah. We asked him if he knew anything about the family, and the old man then proceeded to tell my wife and I a morbid tale. "I knew the family who lived there before. I was here when they moved in, and I was here when they left. They were the Williams, and they were a family of 3. Mr. William, his wife, and their beautiful daughter Hannah." Upon hearing the name Hannah, our interest was piqued as we listened more closely. Apparently, Miss Williams had been cheating as she had an affair with another man. Her daughter Hannah once caught her mother with a man in her father's absence, and to keep the girl quiet, the woman and her lover locked the little girl up inside the Almirah. The girl horrifically died from suffocation, and the mother then told the girl's father that little Hannah was playing inside it and accidentally locked herself up. The man, who was already suspicious of his wife, didn't believe the story, so he carried out an investigation that resulted in the truth coming to light. I saw it all when the woman and lover were taken to jail, and I watched Mr. Williams hastily leave the neighborhood, taking only a few of his belongings with him. When the old man finished his tale, my wife and I were speechless. The story told us everything we needed to know, as it collaborated with the story of the seller who sold us the Almirah in the first place. It also gave us clarity on the background of the Almirah and where it came from, but I felt myself feeling tense as I realized a little girl had died inside it. My wife and I weren't ones to believe in ghosts or spirits, but there were too many mysterious coincidences. So to be on the safe side, we decided to get rid of the Almirah and whatever was living inside of it by the end of the week. The next day was Friday. It was the afternoon, and our daughter Ellie was playing inside our room. We heard laughing while she played, but within minutes, her laughing turned to screams. "Daddy, Daddy, let me out, I'm stuck." I rushed in to see the room empty as I heard my daughter screaming from the inside of the Almirah. I began to try to pry the door open, but it was as if an invisible force was forcefully keeping it shut. I called my wife to quickly get my tools as our daughter was stuck inside the Almirah. So she ran to the shed to get the toolbox. I heard my daughter screaming strange things like, "Get away from me! Leave me alone, Hannah! I don't like this game!" Within minutes, my wife rushed into the room with the tools. I tried to use them, but nothing was working as the Almirah didn't want to open. Things then went creepily silent as my 6-year-old daughter wasn't screaming anymore. My wife began to scream at me to do something as she feared for the worst. So I decided to open the Almirah by force. I ran to the shed to get my axe, and when I came back, I hacked at the Almirah till I completely broke the door. I immediately pulled my now unconscious daughter into my arms, and we rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said that the lack of air was what made her pass out, but she was completely fine as we got her out of the Almirah in time. That night, while my wife stayed at the hospital with our daughter, I went home and removed the Almirah from our room. I took it to the backyard and I burnt it till it was nothing but ash. The strange occurrence shook my wife and I to the core, but we were just glad that our daughter was all right. The next day, Ellie was discharged and we took her home. On the way home, I asked her, "How do you feel, sweetie?" My daughter then replied to me, "I feel fine, Daddy." I knew she said she felt fine, but something felt odd about her as her aura had changed, and her eyes now had a dull look in them. That night, We all sat down to have dinner as a family. About 30 minutes into the dinner, I said, "Can you please pass the salt, Ellie?" My daughter then looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why do you call me Ellie, Father? That's not my name. I'm Hannah. Remember?